Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So I would like to thank you for the opportunity and time given to me to give a presentation. And the topic of my research at the once Mathematics and Mathematics Education International Conference M2EIC 2023. So previously I will introduce my name to Rahmad Hidayat from the Master of Mathematics Education at Sebelas Maret University. As one of the research on the topic, I was developing under Professor Budiyono and Mr. Siswanto as my supervisor in developing this research. So the research topic that I researched and developed is feedback assessment, description of feedback assessment for learning, mathematics teacher in learning. So and the introduction to enhance the teaching and learning process, assessment for learning is done through the learning process. Teacher that use assessment for learning can give student feedback on the learning process, track their development, and as their learning progress. This assessment must be able to reveal specific ability as well as develop the abilities of learner. So when choosing an assessment, consider the benefit of feedback for learner. An educator are required by assessment for learning to evaluate learning track development, and assess learning progress. Students are give learning feedback regarding the complement of their competency learning outcome. So assessment for learning applies the use of feedback as take in the develop of the mathematics learning for teacher and student. Implementing feedback as an initiative in learning can develop learning in education. So facing the above problem, the researcher want to provide an overview of how to provide a feedback in formative assessment, which one of the assessment for learning approach in the learning process in the classroom by mathematics teacher. So the feedback and assessment can be used to monitor student progress, determine appropriate learning pace, and evaluate education strategies. And the research method in my research is this study was conducted to answer a study on the use of feedback on the assessment for learning approach as a developed tool for mathematics learning in the classroom by teacher and student. Qualitative research was chosen as an alternative approach in the implementation of this research. Interview with math instructor were used to gather data, and purpose sampling technique were used to choose the subject. A qualitative approach to this research using the interview methods. The interview was conducted with experts in their fields, namely is Mr. Ruspandi, as one of the teacher at Surakarta Once Public High School, who has knowledge and experience relevant to this research. And the data analysis involves the transcription of interview, the grouping of relevant findings, and the development of key items emerging for the interview. And this research will be interpreted by research to help them better understanding how feedback is applied to the assessment for learning methodology in the teaching and learning of mathematics. And into interview data, research will also employ other data sources like document analysis and observation. So the research into publication, article reports, and other pertinent sources will be done as part of the document analysis process to provide feedback to the assessment for learning approach. So additionally, observation can be done to learn more about how feedback is applied in practical context. So, and this study collect data using triangulation, source data from a variety of different sources using the same method. So, from a teacher in the classroom by combining data from interview, document analysis, and observation, research will compare and cross-check the finding from different sources. And so this study aims to show that assessment is no longer seen as process to measure student performance during at the end of the program, but must be used feedback for the improvement of the mathematics learning process, both my student and educator. And now, result and discussion for this research. The finding indicate that learning process application to assessment was not carried out to its potential. A teacher of mathematics still preach a high priority on assessment when judging a student capacity to carry out as to follow a teacher instruction in making this decision. It is supported by interview that teacher says that before proceeding the learning process at the next stage, the teacher will give direction to student to read the material to be learned as profession by student in carrying out the learning process to be carried out. One of the assessment approach that can be applied to the learning process in the current curriculum in the assessment following. Assessment following seeks to enhance the learning process and function as tools for assessing student learning outcomes, achievement, reflection, and learning, offering feedback to learning process change, and identifying the strength and weakness of student learning. However, the result of mathematics teacher interviews show that the ability of mathematics teacher to know the assessment is still not optimal. Teachers still prioritize summative assessment knowledge in determining result in cognitive, affective, and psychomotor aspect. So, and the teacher still prioritize assessment, the achievement of student report card, and the achievement of student ability. So the providing feedback is still available when a student can complete or exercise or tasks when the assessment process is carried out. The use of learning objective and use the criteria enable students to evaluate their own progress in their student and identify for future improvement by giving feedback on assessment of the learning process. Teacher who genuinely care about their student can learn more about the student are thinking and understanding and the intervene with the right learning activity. And by discussion for the result is the creation of assessment recruitment, a problem in comprehension and assessment in the use of assessment in the education process. So one of the use of assessment in the learning process, the place a strong emphasis on feedback is called assessment for learning. This is done by teacher and student. Applying the principle of high quality feedback in math classroom is critical for learning success. Feedback to learn should not only promote their learning of mathematical content, but also reinforce the application of mathematical practice. And feedback can be given verbally or in writing, or it can take the shape of demonstration or another format that is standard for the application of the assessment to be made. Giving them a command that allows the to reflect on press discuss the task and as one sort of feedback. This is very simple to use NRB feedback. Is center on mathematically practice learn growing in the thinking habit necessary to be mathematically proficient. So teacher can start feedback discussion by I noticed that I can see that based on my observation it seem or or anything that can be used for the teacher in mathematics learning. Harnessing feedback by its impact on his own learning produce long-term effect on learn by developing a strong sense of confidence and belief in themselves that they can and will success, giving enough effort and commitment to keep trying. Good or bad feedback shapes attitude, starts learning and self-learn. Idents as learners, feedback can change classroom culture, so learners think and act like learners rather than like class institutes or homework machines. So there are strategy, feedback, and assessment for learning and assessment feedback. The first is timing. The purpose, giving immediately or handily delay feedback is done, so the student can hear and apply it. It's number two amount. The purpose current considered is necessary for feedback assessment. Feedback should clearly explain to students what they should do next one on more areas they believe they need to work on. In number three is mode, the purpose. There are many ways to deliver feedback. There are many of type assessment that are pretty for different form of feedback. And it's number four is audience. So the purpose feedback performs best when it has a clear and accurate understanding of its audience. And feedback content be used in assessment feedback or assessment for learning. The first is focus. The purpose information comparing errors and whether something is right wrong is included in feedback on the activity. So it's number two a comparison. The purpose comparing the work of learning to learn target in a criteria reference and is become the main type of comparison used for a good feedback. And issue number two is function. The purpose is writing descriptive feedback. Is like learn to write descriptive paragraph in elementary school. If the difference between descriptive and evaluative feedback is simply a matter of terminology. So issue number four is the valence is purpose feedback out to be favorable. Being positive doesn't imply pretending to be joyful or claiming that your work is going well when it isn't. And so this discussion also about the result in this topic. Supportive feedback has a high likelihood of inspiring pride and happiness, but a feedback that inspires social comparison, a critical feedback has a high likelihood of inspiring worry. So the learner may feel happy or unhappy, perplexed or moved, and as a result, they may answer appropriately or not at all. So to close the gap between the learning current condition and where the when to be in the learning and success, one way to approach assessment for learning through feedback. That's designed by competent teacher asking student is doing this to be assessed for learning. Student must become more agent in their studies. So, and formative assessment should be recognized as the most significant assessment approach if the main goal of assessment is to enhance high quality learning. So, although they are frequently informal and implicit, assessment for learning establishes diagnosis, formative assessment, and feedback mechanism at various points of the teaching and learning process. So, and a good assessment is one which and based on feedback that has the potential to improve the student learning in several ways. Learning can learn to practice or challenge depending on what kind of mathematical knowledge and skill will benefit them. So, educator can teach them how to ask questions by looking its correct to make progress toward learning targets, greatly increasing understanding, confidence, and competence. And yeah, so the conclusion that I got from the research that I have developed is so the best for enhancing the teaching and learning process is provided by assessment for learning, which is done throughout the learning process. To assess student learning, teacher must give comment on their progress, keep track of their assessment, and understand where each student is in the learning process. Flexibility in the application of assessment for the time, delivery use of assessment, instrument, and the methodologies, the establishment of standard for meeting learn objective, and processing of assessment result all affect learning feedback. Educator in sort out further relevant point in applying the assessment process and feedback in the learning process in the classroom complementary. Assessment depend on the competence as those providing an accurate picture of student learning progress. So student progress is tracked through assessment in the classroom, which also aims to encourage a growth mindset for ongoing learning quality improvement. Feedback-based assessment can be utilized for a variety of objectives, particularly those focused at enhancing the caliber of student mathematics learning activity. So, and the teacher can utilize feedback for constructive goals, including inspiring students to become autonomous learning, creating new teaching trigger, or simply conveying in informating. Then yeah, so here are the things that I got in my research relates to feedback assessment. Description of feedback assessment for learning, mathematics literature in learning. So if there are mistake and differentials, I apologize. So I end. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.